I am delighted to welcome Pink to this conversation here with us at the Child Mind Institute. Hi.
Hi.
There's a song of yours called Conversations with My 13-Year-Old Self, where you saying, quote, I promise you that it won't always feel this bad. There's so many things I want to say to you. So first question, what would you say today to your younger self?
Uh-huh. Why does that make me want to cry? I I kind of used that song as an opportunity to write about an experience that I had in therapy with my therapist, where I had to close my eyes and picture my loneliest version of myself, my angriest version of myself. And I was 13. I had green hair and braces. I wore kilts with fishnets and Doc Martens, POW MIA t-shirts, and I was just about to be kicked out of Sister Act, the play, because I didn't show up for rehearsals. And I had to walk up to this little girl and talk to her in my mind and give her a hug. And I was a grown woman terrified of this 13-year-old. I was like, this little girl is terrifying and she's going to kick me in my shin and it's going to hurt. But it ended up being this beautiful moment of me being older, wiser, and stronger than this 13-year-old girl and not giving up on this little girl and holding her while she fought me. And until she crumpled in my lap and cried. And I did that work over 10 years ago, and it still makes my eyes well up with tears thinking about her, me. And so I went home and I wrote that song. And it's crazy. There's been so many dads, especially, that have come up to me over the years and said, thank you for writing that song in particular, because I felt like I had no bridge back to my daughter. And that song was the bridge. And it makes me verklempt. Like it overwhelms me as a person that writes about my own life. So
That's perfect, Pink, because you have a daughter who will reach that very tough age in the next couple of years. So what is it that you hope she knows that'll be easier? Because as parents, we always want to make our kids' lives hopefully a little easier than ours.
oh, there's so many things on a daily basis. Number one, I think it's really important for kids to know that their parents are human beings with lives and stresses of their own, and that we too were once kids, and that we don't have a manual for any of this, and we're not perfect and we're not meant to be. I don't think that has to be like a cold, hard truth that every kid just gets smacked in the face with in their life. I think it can be like a process of learning. Also, I want Willow to know that the world is a big, beautiful place with a lot of really great people in it that are just waiting to love her. And they may not be at her school. They may not be her immediate neighbor, but they're just waiting to love her just how she is. And so many things. I mean, I feel very fortunate because my 10-year-old girl has been able to travel. We're kind of all people that ran away and joined the circus. And she's been able to see that. I didn't know at her age that maybe you're not the lead singer, but you could be the violinist, or you could be in wardrobe if you're good with a needle and thread, or you could be, if you're good with a computer, you could be in charge of the lights. Like, there's so many places for creative people in the world. Sometimes it's not a fun experience in high school. So I openly communicate. I probably over communicate, as you can tell.
Well, I watched your tour documentary, and I have to say that you actually have incredible philosophy of parenting. So as a child psychiatrist who's written a parenting book, or in fact, 3 of them, I'm hoping we can talk a little bit about it, because in the documentary, you actually tell your daughter that you're proud of her for telling you that she'd like to go home and see her friends after being away with you for some time on tour. So as a parent, how did you learn to foster this really impressive communication?
Number one, thank you.
No, I meant it. Yeah.
I don't know. I think because I'm so sensitive, I feel like a walking wound traveling around the world. It's like, and I'm so sensitive to her because I care so much for her that I want to honor her experience. And I know that it can't be easy growing up with a mom that's this big, that's this personality wise, volume wise, just the way that I emote. Everything is really big. I'm on 10. and our job, what I do, I travel. Like, you're going on tour with me, you're going to grow up on the road. And I also want to honor her experience. I don't think that it's fair that my life is bigger than her life, you know? And I will and have sort of bent myself into pretzels at times to rearrange how I go through the world with children, because it can't be about me. It can't. It wouldn't be fair to her. So I don't know. The thing that's interesting.
I think you do a really good job. The book that I just wrote is called Scaffold Parenting. And the idea is that the kid is the building and the parents are the scaffolds. And so they dictate what the building's going to look like. They're going to live in the skyscraper or in the split level or the bungalow. And it's our job to offer support and structure and encouragement. But we have to be warm, we have to monitor, we have to be dispassionate at times. And when you say to her, you know, I'm going to miss you, but I understand you want to go home and that's going to be okay. I mean, that's offering support. That's offering structure and encouragement that she can leave you to go home for a week or 2 weeks or however long she was away, and that you'll still be okay and she'll be okay. So, I mean, that's textbook parenting, you know, A+, Pink. So.
Thanks. I'm also super cognizant of the fact that she's a tiny bit afraid to disappoint me more than anybody else in the household. And that kind of bothers me because I don't want to create a wall between us. So I intentionally find moments where I can just let her be on her own, have her own thoughts, her own opinions that differ from mine.
You said that your own parents supported your passions. What did you learn from parenting from them? Because, you know, very often we want to do it better than our parents and we see the mistakes our parents made. But in the case of your parents, they just seem to have, in many ways, at least it appears that they accepted who you were, you know, the deficits, the assets, and they accepted these passions, which, you know, green hair couldn't have been easy.
I think I was just so tough. I don't envy my parents for having me as a child. There was nothing that they could do. I don't know that they wanted a child like that. I would say my dad always, I say that my dad taught me the language of the trees, because my dad always brought me into nature and always spoke to me as if I was smarter than him. He never treated me like a baby. He never treated me like I wasn't smart enough to get an idea. And he loved me no matter what. He would show up when no one else could find me. He always knew where to find me, and he would bring me home. No questions asked, no less love.
So I understand that you've written letters to your daughter on milestone occasions, the day of her birth, the first day of kindergarten, and that you'll one day pass those along for her to read. I think it's actually an outstanding idea, which I tell parents to do, because the feelings that you have during that moment are so special and very often they're hard to hold on to. Is there a central message that you hope she takes from them?
I don't know if there's a central message other than I was there and I was paying attention. And, you know, we all paint things as every time you tell a story, it gets a little bit different. So 10 years down the road, you don't even remember what really happened.
Right.
I think the reason that I wanted to do the documentary and the reason I write these letters is because she's going to grow up and have her own palette that she painted over this life she has led.
Right.
And I want her to be able to go back. It's why I want her to write her own letters. I want her to keep her own journal, because it's important to know what really happened or what was happening for the other person.
So I've always said that, particularly during COVID, self-care is essential for childcare. If we don't take care of ourselves, if we don't put the oxygen mask on us, we can't put it on the kid. And if we're not sleeping, if we're not being spiritual and meditating, if we're not eating something green, if we're not doing some exercise, it's hard to be a great parent. And it's also a good model. Do you have any self-care rituals with your kids?
I cry a lot. I'm model having feelings.
Okay.
I apologize when I'm wrong, whether it's to my children, to my parents, my spouse, my my employees. I think there's a huge power in apology and in being self-aware and admitting when you're wrong. And also, I laugh a lot. I have a very twisted sense of humor in which I can take something dark and immediately make it funny. That's my sort of survival. And so my kids have this twisted, wonderful sense of humor. I mean, Jameson flung himself, my 5-year-old flung himself violently off the couch last night and was about to cry. And I made up this whole story about, and next in the Olympic competition of hurling your body across the room at a velocity of 95, and he just starts cracking up and his knee doesn't hurt anymore.
Right.
So
You got the gold, you gave him the gold medal. You know what I mean? You moved in right to where, yeah, the positive side of throwing yourself off the couch. Do they know about meditation?
They do. My 5-year-old is not into it.
Okay, that's fair.
Willow knows about meditation, but I'm trying to teach her, as I'm learning myself, that for me, I don't think sitting still and clearing my mind is a meditation that's really going to work for me. I think for me, I teach her about all the different sort of ways. A shower can be a meditation if you turn it into a ritual of gratitude. Walking in nature can be meditation. Exercise can be a form of meditation. Visual meditation is what works for me. I have to be able to see things, whether it's the gold light that I'm bringing into my body and blowing out what no longer serves me, or the shadows that I'm trying to get rid of in my body. So I'm teaching her about all the different ways, and journaling to me is really, really important. I still have all of my journals from when I was her age. I wrote a song called Family Portrait that started from a poem I wrote the day my dad left. I have that poem. You know, it's good to keep these things. So any way you can breathe and then let it go, I'm all about.
You've written, I've always identified with people who struggle. So is this something that you've said? And I think a big reason why people relate to you is your authenticity. So what do you find are your biggest struggles today as a working mother during this pandemic?
I mean, I struggle. I'm an engaged person that cares about the world and the people around me. And I struggle with so much. I just lost my dad. I struggle with our relationship, and how long am I going to have to really unpack that? I struggle with, I've been married for 20 years, and marriage is hard, and communication is hard. And I struggle with not knowing the long game of parenting. I am a person that makes really fast decisions and barrels through the world with a machete, like cutting a path if there isn't one. And so trying to have long game as a mom in the world that we're living in right now. And I overthink everything. So I also struggle with, you know, am I depressed? Is this depression? Am I sad? Am I not taking care of myself? Why is it so hard to have boundaries? Why is it so hard for others to respect my boundaries? Why, as a woman, why do I have to scream to be heard? There's such a fascination I have with quiet power. So I think about all these things every single day.
Right. Well, there's no doubt parenting is a marathon, you know that. And also you can take redos, you know, mulligans are allowed. We're always allowed to say to our kids, I made a mistake here. Let's do that again. I was overly concerned, or I really think, you know, we have to talk about what you did because it really makes me nervous that you could put yourself at risk, you know, but it's a marathon where it's not a sprint. But speaking of, you know, self-care, sleep is essential part of this. And you're working with Calm to help kids and families sleep better, navigate emotions, and improve their mental health through a series of sleep stories. So can you tell us about this project and why it's so important to you?
Well, I think number one, sleep is probably one of the most important gifts we can give ourselves, and it's harder and harder to come by. And we're more and more distracted. And I've been using the Calm app for years. I love guided meditations. I love their sleep stories. My kids have been listening to them with me for years. when I heard that they were going to do a kids version, I got really excited because I love reading books. I mean, I would volunteer for Willow's kindergarten just so I could go in and read books to the kids. And my kids are afraid of the dark. They're afraid to be alone. We co-sleep. We're super codependent. So, if I want to get to that glass of wine, I have to figure out a really healthy way of getting you to sleep a little bit quicker. And Jameson's been listening to the Minions version of Calm Kids for about 5 weeks now. He's on this hamster wheel of Minions. So now that I have my stories, I'm getting requested a couple of times a week, which is nice to switch things up. Just I love it because it really does help them sleep. It helps them not be afraid.
You've always been very vocal about inspiring girls and encouraging them to embrace their own power. You were just talking about, the quiet power. COVID has been very disruptive for all kids, and there's even been a spike in emergency department visits for suicide attempts, and it's the highest with girls, an actual 51% increase. So as a child and adolescent psychiatrist, I can tell you that one of my biggest reasons why young people don't seek help is stigma. So how do you navigate finding your individuality when you were younger and build self-confidence and not seem to worry about what other people were thinking?
I guess I didn't worry about what other people were thinking because I was one of those kids that was on the outside of what's acceptable and what's normal. And all of my friends were runaways and the derelicts and the kids that couldn't find their way with parents that weren't necessarily interested in helping. The artists, the freaks, the non-academic, kids that are lost. We were lost kids. And so we were the stigma, but we loved each other fiercely and we had each other's back. And I think now I despise that statistic, the 51%.
It's such a chilling, and you realize that if it was anything else besides a psychiatric symptom like suicide attempts or suicide thinking, it would make the front page of every newspaper, right? A 50% increase in a set of symptoms, and yet it's not as well known, and it's particularly risky for girls.
I can completely see why. And I'm glad that there's a lot of younger artists out there talking about it. I think that there is hopefully less of a stigma about mental health. And I think we need better guidance counselors. I'm still friends with my junior high school guidance counselor. She comes to my shows and we hug, and she's actually been here to visit me. And we talk about, she just retired, but before that, we would talk about certain students anonymously. And, she would ask me about some of her hardest cases. And I don't know that any of us have any answers. It's just, we all need to have each other's back a little bit more. Young girls need to have a safe place to talk about.
Well, you've been pretty open about seeking therapy. So do you remember the first time that you saw a therapist and what that experience was like?
Oh, I remember it like it was yesterday. My mom threw me on a therapist couch when I was 14 years old. And by the fourth session, the therapist said, when my mom came to pick me up, she said, "I think the wrong person is on the couch." And I remember my mom reversing so fast out of this woman's driveway that we ran over a couple shrubs.
Well, first of all, it's very validating, right? But did you ever go back to a therapist and get tools that you've learned through therapy or things that you think really helped you?
I had a wonderful guidance counselor in junior high school. And
is that the one that you're still in touch with, or?
Ann Kuntzman, she was angel walking. She is an angel walking. So she was the only adult in my life that stuck up for me and that saw through the walls and into my heart. After that, I was about 20 when I started going back to therapy, and I'm still talking to the same woman at 42. And I think therapy is so important. And I think, Willow was developing really, really, really debilitating anxiety when she was around 7 years old, hypochondria, worry, natural disasters. I mean, it was becoming an issue. So I know a really, really brilliant child psychologist out here. She sent me, it was like a coloring book workbook that we would work through instead of going to catering for dinner. Willow and I would have dinner alone in the dressing room, and we would work on these chapters in this workbook. And by the 16th chapter, her anxiety was completely gone. And that was, you know, what a gift.
So one last question. What's your idea of happiness?
Oh, my idea of happiness. I have a very conflicted idea of happiness, that we should all just be happy all the time. I don't think that's true. I think that if you can feel your feelings as you're having them and move through them and get back to joy more often than not, that's my idea of happy. A good belly laugh with a friend after an equally good cry is happy. Cuddles are just instant joy. But my dad always used to say, I wish you enough. I wish you enough rain so that you can appreciate the sunshine. And I kind of love that. I love that idea. I don't think we should be happy all the time. I don't think it's productive.
I don't think it's also realistic, but
Yeah.
so first of all, I want to thank you. You are authentic. You're the real deal. I love the fact that you can talk from your heart and that you can also share challenges that you have still, because life is never perfect. As a mother, as a woman, as a wife, that it's still a work in progress. And it's so rewarding because it makes so many other people, particularly young girls, look at you and say, you know, she had some difficulties and she was strong, and I can be successful too. I can find some happiness. So thank you, Pink. And I also want to make sure that when you're in New York, you'll come and visit the Child Mind Institute. And I'd love to show you what we're doing to make the lives of kids who struggle with mental health or learning disorders just more productive and easier and able to have moments of happiness.
I'm 100% in. Thank you for your work and for what you do in this world.
It's mutual. So thank you again.
Thank you.